Hello, and thank you for joining us for this informational session about the campaign for SYA, featuring a conversation with President of School Year Abroad, Tom Hassan, and from Spain, Resident Director Meghan Lewis Roof and faculty member Tomás, and from France, Resident Director Mina Qadir and faculty member Lynée. I am Erin Erickson, SYA's Director of Advancement, and it is my pleasure to welcome you today. I want to start by saying thank you for taking the time to learn more about the campaign for SYA and specifically more about the campaign's impact on faculty support. This is our fourth and final informational webinar in our October campaign series. If you missed the first three, which were about the basics of the campaign, progress toward our student aid initiative, and innovative changes to our curriculum, they are available at campaignforsya.org/events. Just as we have with the others, we will once again be recording this webinar and it may be distributed to others who are not able to attend today. Also, we have allocated some time at the end to cover a few questions, so please feel free to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. A quick note about campaign progress, with tremendous thanks to those who have given to the campaign thus far, including a very recent pledge commitment of $1 million, which will be matched at $250,000 by the Alvarez family with their generous Alvarez multiplier match. We have now reached the $13.5 million mark, and that's making great progress toward our campaign goal of $18 million, which we need to raise by June 30th of 2021. So we're making good progress, but our clock is ticking. So today we are going to talk about faculty support. If you are an alum of SYA, I imagine if I asked you to name one or two teachers from your year who made an impact on your experience, it wouldn't take too long for those names to come to mind. In fact, it may actually be hard to only name two because we have so many wonderful faculty members. We have alumni who are still talking about their teachers from 50 years ago, whose influence in their educational and personal journeys has endured over all of those years. Similarly, my guess is that if you are a parent, you could probably tell me who your child's favorite teacher was at SYA and why. We know that you could probably also tell us their least favorite, but we're not going to go there today. So if you read through our campaign case statement, you will see that what we mean when we talk about faculty support is fostering mentors and thought leaders, sustaining the central source of inspiration and guidance for our students, our faculty members. To be a faculty member at SYA is unlike the typical American school experience as a teacher. Our local faculty work with American students whose primary language isn't their own, and throughout the year they must not only teach them their core subject matter, but also assist in their learning about the language and culture abroad. Faculty members serve as advisors and trusted adults during a year that many alumni describe as pivotal and transformative in their lives. SYA is so grateful that we have a strong and committed group of faculty members in each country, many who have been with SYA for 15 to 20 years and sometimes more. Gifts to the campaign for faculty support go toward ensuring they are fairly compensated and developed professionally for the large task they have before them of educating American high schoolers abroad. Additionally, when some of the teachers who have been with SYA for a long time make the decision to retire, we want to ensure that those iconic individuals are replaced with the next generation of faculty leaders who can drive SYA's pursuit of innovation. With all that said, at this point, I'd like to hand the virtual microphone over to SYA President Tom Hassan for a conversation with Meghan, Tomás, Mina, and Lynée.
Erin, thank you so much. And thank you all for being on the webinar. Erin, I just want to say before I turn to my friends and colleagues here, a big thank you to you and your team. I know to put these on and all the things that you've had to pivot to in this new virtual space for us has been nothing short of outstanding. So thank you all. And thank you for that wonderful report about the campaign. It's really just wonderful to see the outpouring of support, and we really appreciate that. And it turns now to huge thanks to those colleagues of mine who are on the screen here. And as Erin said, the teachers and the RDs, the resident directors, just make the year for students and make the year for parents, I have to say. I know parents, a big thing to let a student go away for that amount of time, and these trusting and caring adults are really important for them to have that contact with. So let me begin. And when I meet alums, I always ask them, how did you find out about school year abroad? I'm totally curious about pathways that people pursue to get there. And I would love to talk to the two faculty members here, the teachers, and ask them how they got here. And I'll start with Lynée. How did you find out about school year abroad?
Thanks, Tom. It's a great question. So I was at an independent school in Western Massachusetts for about 8 to 10 years. And one night in dorm duty, I was in the dorm and a student had her laptop open, and on the back of the laptop was the big SYA sticker. And I looked at her and said, "What's SYA?" She turned her head around. "You don't know what SYA is?" I said, "No." We didn't have a representative at our school, and we didn't have a lot of students going abroad to SYA, so I didn't know what it was. And in that moment, she moved over, dropped her books, dropped her laptop, and said, "Listen to my story." So she had spent a year in Spain, told me all about the story. And at the end of it, she said, "You have to go teach for them." And I said, "Why? Why do you think that I would be a good teacher?" She said, "You're the kind of teacher that students are drawn to. We want to be around you. You help us with our homework. You care about our lives. You sit with us during dorm duty. You see us on the field. You see us in all aspects of our lives. Like, we know that you've traveled abroad with students before. That's the kind of teacher we want to have in the receiving end at SYA. You have to apply." So I kept it on my radar for a couple of years. I had a small child at the time and said, this isn't the right time. And I looked every now and then when the time was right, I saw the position and I said, this is it. I want to go, I want to do this. And I had lived in France before and I had lived in Italy before. And so the two sites were very attractive to me. But after my interview with Madame Qadir, I just knew, I was like, that's the place I need to be and where I want to be. And I was very lucky to get the opportunity to be here, but it all came from a student. She selected me out and said, "You have to go, you have to apply."
Oh, wow, that is great. Well, we're lucky to have you. And I can't wait to get that student's name. I'm going to reach out to her and thank her profusely. That's great. That's a great story. Tomás, now you were living in Spain at the time that you found out about SYA?
Yes, thanks, Tom. Yes, the first time that I hear about SYA was when a friend told me that he had an American sibling. I had not any idea what that means, so I had not any idea about what he was talking about. So they explained me that they were host family, and he explained to me what SYA was and its program. And casually, the school is very close to my home. So I'm from Zaragoza, and the school is more or less 10 minutes walking from my home. So every day I was walking down this street, I thought, oh, here it is, the American school. But that's all for many years. So the time passed, and 7 years ago, SYA Spain offered a vacancy to teach environmental science, which is my specialty. So I was very interested in this position because all I hear about SYA was very good news, very good words. So I applied, I was lucky, and I get the job.
Well, and whenever I visit over there, the kids are surrounding you. So I know that you're a great magnet. And also people should know that Tomás not only teaches, but he coordinates our technology actually across all the campuses. So we use a learning management system called Canvas, and you're really, among many things, a real guru of that and help us. So thanks for all that work. And you know what, I'm going to embarrass the RDs for a second because I love hearing their quick stories of how they got to SYA. Meghan, quickly, how did you find out about it?
So I also learned about it from a student, similar to Lynée, but it wasn't because I actually didn't teach the student. I just had noticed how well she spoke Spanish. She was a high schooler and I was teaching mostly middle school at the time. And so I asked her when I was up in the upper school, wow, how is your Spanish so good when you're still in high school? And she let me know about SYA. So it was kind of on my radar, but it wasn't something I was looking into. And then when my husband and I decided that we wanted to move back to Spain because we'd lived here before, I checked SYA's website, and fortunately, kind of like when Tomás said, he saw the position was open, the RD position happened to be open. And so I decided to apply, and here I am.
Wow. Now the power of student to student and student to adult to get to SYA, it's really two great stories along those lines. And And Mina, I know your story, which is a little different than these. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your way that you found out about SYA? You're on mute, Mina.
Okay, my bad, sorry. So yeah, my story is a bit unusual. So I heard about SYA the first time at a nail salon in Rennes. My husband and I and our kids were on a sabbatical back in 2015 in France. And I happened to wait for my turn at this salon. And I heard this lady speak English with what sounded to me as a heavy East Coast accent. I couldn't really place it. I wasn't sure if it was New York or Boston. And I decided to walk up to her and say hello, and to quite frankly have a conversation in English to practice. I had been here for like 5-6 months, and I hadn't spoken much English. So long story short, after a few minutes, she tells me her husband is the director of a school called SYA Abroad, and that there is a French language teaching position. And I had explained to her that I used to be a French teacher back in the US. So anyways, we set up an appointment, and I interviewed with who was the director back then, Denis Brochu, and I came out of his office being the college counselor. So that's pretty odd, you know, interview process and how all this thing started. And I'm happy I met her that day at this nail salon, and we're still in touch. Linda and Denis are in Boston now, but so that's sort of how I heard about this school.
See, I always love asking that question because you never know what how you have the pathways that people take. So that's a great story. Switching gears, Aaron had mentioned the fact that the funds that we have been receiving through the campaign get filtered to certain areas, and clearly what we want to talk about today is to faculty support. And through some funds that we received, we set up a teaching and curriculum seminar, actually over 2 summers. One of them was in Spain and one was in Italy. And Mina and Meghan, can you just describe a little bit about what it was? And maybe I'll start with you, Meghan, and then a takeaway that you had from that experience.
Sure, yeah, it was amazing. So last summer was the first summer that I was the RD, so I've only been able to go to one of them, but we had the opportunity to all travel from all of the different campuses to Viterbo, which is where the Italy campus is, and be there together for the conference on teaching and learning. And we had a number of different people from our different campuses give presentations and talk to us about what's going on their campuses. And more than anything, I think, of course, we all went away with a lot of content and information about, moving forward with our curriculum, but was just the opportunity to meet each other. We'd all seen each other on Slack, and messages were sometimes exchanged, but it was very much, kind of felt a little bit more like a silo on your own campus. And this opportunity to open up and meet everyone really made it easier when we got back on campus to feel more comfortable just reaching out, asking questions, having the teachers also, I know, love having the opportunity to get to know each other and exchange ideas about what they're doing in their classes. So I think the biggest takeaway is just that opportunity to work together as a team, a wider team besides just the teams that we each have on our campuses. Yeah. And of course, having an opportunity to go to Viterbo was also fantastic. So
we were fed well.
Yes, we were fed very well.
That's great. Mina, how about you? What takeaways do you have from those experiences?
Yeah, sure. I mean, those large meetings, team meetings, are always great. They allow us to be together, like Meghan just said right now, and work together and use our team's creativity to develop new projects and go over curriculum, review the overarching SYA goals, share best practices. And most importantly to me, it's really a time where we bond as one team. And what I take away from what we did back in June in Viterbo is really the high level of collegiality that forms between the teams cross sites. And to give a very concrete example for people listening tonight is, I remember that the Spain and the France team, the language teachers came together back in April when our students were in the US and continuing with us online. And we couldn't do our traditional capstone project, and they had to come up with a new culminating project, language project for the students. So technology, obviously, and Tomás is here, but technology made the communication between teachers possible. But above all, it's the time I think that we spent together in Viterbo, the work relationship that made this venture with a common purpose possible. And I think that's essential to everyone's professional growth and professional commitment. It simply enhances, I think, the quality of our teaching and its effectiveness. And if I may say, it's just more fun to work this way. So that's sort of what I take away, really, what we did together and what we took away, and this continuous work we're doing across sites.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mina. I know the teachers obviously are teaching their disciplines. And I just wanted, Lynée, any reaction about the kinds of students that you've encountered at SYA and what makes them kind of probably a little bit different and special than the ones that you've seen back in the States?
Yeah, I'd love to answer that question. I think that so many adjectives come to mind. I mean, they're resilient, they're brave, their intellectual flexibility, the ability to walk into my class and sit in a seminar style and just dive into a book that we're reading and put it into perspective of the sense of place of where they're living, and to walk out the door and to speak French and then move into the next class and then go to the next thing. I mean, they're just creative students that have this ability to understand themselves, to come to a place where they know nothing. Usually they know some of the language, of course, live with a family that they've never even met before, and really develop their own ability to look at the world through someone else's eyes and to experience life in a different way, and to grapple with it. I mean, everything's not easy for them, but that's part of the learning, and they know that, and they go on through it, and they struggle with certain things and understanding, and they come out on the other side always thankful that they've experienced life in a different way. And then English class is really a place where they're able to process it, where they see themselves in a book, or they relate to a character, or the reflective writing that they're sharing. And I was really fortunate this year to be invited in quite early to be part of the field work. And so English class really became part of the field work as well on Thursday, where they would, have a creative story about their day or something related to what they had learned, and just the processing. I mean, I barely spoke in our classes. The students just took over, and it was amazing.
Wow. Thanks for that assessment. Tomás, I'm going to ask you two questions connected to what the two topics we were just talking. I know you were at the Teaching and Learning Conference, both of them.
Yeah.
Any takeaways from that? And then also your thoughts on the kinds of students you've seen over the years.
Okay. About the conference, as Mina and Meghan said, I think this is an amazing opportunity. This was an amazing opportunity where we all learn a lot. As we are a school split in several campuses, each of them in a local country, in a different country, this conference gives us the opportunity to meet another colleagues from another countries in person. We can share ideas, we can plan projects that can be carried out together. So I think this is an invaluable experience. And for instance, the last year I was in Viterbo. I was 2 times during the conference and before the conference. And I can remember very well that Linda and Pat Scanlon showed me many details about their class, their agroecology class. This class has many common points with my environmental science class that I teach in Spain. So they explained me several fieldwork experience that they do. And the following year, I implement some of these fieldwork experience in my class. So currently, thanks to Linda and Pat Scanlon, but thanks to this conference, SYA Spain student can do this project here in Spain in places around Zaragoza. I think that 2 of my favorite ones would be the grape harvest fieldwork and the cheese making project. I think that's the best ones, like a summary.
Great.
And about the students, I would say that all SYA students has in common a great interest for exploring, and a great motivation for broadening their minds and learning about another cultures. They want to know the culture of another regions. They want to know how the people think. They want to know the cultural, social, and political differences. So if I had to describe them, I would say that they want to learn the culture from inside, because at the end, they want to become a more cosmopolitan citizens, I think.
Well said. Well said. Thanks. I know over time that SYA has not only focused obviously on the academics and all of that, but the whole child, as I would say. So the advising piece. And so I'd love maybe the RDs to just start out. Mina, just talk a little bit about the kind of advising structure we now have in place for students. That would be helpful for people to hear.
Sure. So the advisory, so the role of the academic advisor is very important here, even more so, I think, than the US, because students arrive in September and they need a lot of guidance and assistance, mostly at the beginning of the year, as I said, beginning of the program. And the advisor is really the first go-to person for students to find answers and solutions to their questions and problems. And the advisor also provides communication continuity between the school and the American families back home and the sending schools. And we are fortunate enough to have very small advisory classes, groups. So it's also an informal and safe place for students to be candid about their experience and support each other in this SYA adventure.
Yeah. And Tomás or Lynée, any advising stories you want to share? I think about the work you've done with students on that.
Stories I don't know, but I would say that being abroad is very challenging for everybody, but even more if you are a teenager. So I think that the role as an advisor is one of the key points of this program, because I think that having an advisor, the student has a close person to talk to discuss academic topic, but also about cultural shocks. I cannot give you an example now, but there are many cultural shocks always when you are living in another country. So I think in summary, the advisor is the one who can help a student to solve problems, but the advisor is also the one who can help the student to understand better the local culture.
Lynée, anything about an advisee or want to share?
Yeah, I would just add that it was a pivotal point for me as a faculty member as well, just having that time with the students, the scheduled time once a week, but it became much more than that. I remember on one of our trips in October, we went to Nantes and I sat down to have a coffee outside, and one advisee sat down with me to get a hot chocolate. And then one looked around and said, hey, I want to come to the next. All of a sudden, all my advisees were sitting with me and we were talking about being on the trip. And so more students would come over and they said, no, this is an advising meeting. And I was like, it's not really a meeting. And they said, no, but we wanted to be in our group together. And it was never, the outside of this, the structured time was never a formal meeting. It was just kind of my presence during our trips or on the Fieldwork Thursday or any place that we could be. They wanted to integrate and share their experiences with me. And I felt very fortunate. I was their go-to person. And we talked a lot about homestays and just families back home, and communicating with the parents was crucial. And they really felt supported. And I'd come to school and they'd say, oh, thank God you're here. I wanted to tell you what I got on my math test. It was just that kind of relationship that they knew that one person would always want to hear how well they were doing, or, something was challenging for them. I got an email last week, just wanted to say hello and see how you're doing, from an advisee I had last year who's in college. And she said, my English class is not the same. So
I want to be in your advisor group. Meghan, I know we've talked about a few terms here, and you can help define them for us. And the other piece that SYA has done a lot on is experiential learning, getting kids out of their seats and into the local community. And we've talked about field work and we've talked about capstone. Do you want to describe a little bit more about those for folks?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So yes, in recent years, and particularly this past year on all of our campuses, we've been really focusing on using the city even more as a classroom, I would say. I mean, the city and the surrounding area, and have introduced the idea of field work. So this is something that was kind of launched initially in Italy when Tomás was mentioning the, working with the teachers in Italy on kind of mimicking some of the things they've done. They've been at it a little bit longer, so it was kind of tested there, and then we started to do it in France and in Spain as well. So it's a great opportunity for teachers to, we've assigned a day each week. So for Italy and Spain, it's on Wednesdays, and because of school schedules in France, it's on Thursdays, that are a fieldwork day. So it's an opportunity for us to do something that with a normal traditional school schedule, you don't have time to do usually. And so that might be things in the city where the kids are visiting different places, depending on which classes we're focusing on that day for the field work. It might be a whole school visit to, for example, what Tomás was talking about when we, go to make cheese or to do the wine, the grape harvest. So it's just a way for us to do more experiential place-based learning, because while a lot of what we do is traditional as far as similar to things that happen in a US classroom, our students are coming to us so that they can then continue oftentimes and finish their high school career at home. Obviously, it's also really important to take advantage of the fact that they're in a different country, and that the exposure to the language and to the culture is really one of the main goals of the whole experience. And so as much as we can get them out of the kind of walls of the building and into that, the better.
Great. And Mina, I might ask Mina, describe a little bit about Capstone project and what's that like?
Sure. So the capstone project typically happens at the end of the year. So it's our culminating project. We unfortunately couldn't do it this year because students went home in March. But our capstone is basically the culmination of all the essential skills that students learn throughout the year. It ranges from the language acquisition. The capstone is a project that's done in the target language. It has 3 parts. The experiential one, when the students actually research the topic and go outside of the 4 walls of the school and get the information and the knowledge they need to answer that essential question they're asking themselves. It has a presentation portion to it where they actually explaining that process to their peers. And again, that's in the target language. And they also write a piece in French or in Spanish if it's in Spain in regards to that essential question being answered. So it's a very big project. It takes time. We usually start it in January, and there is a long search for that essential question. That's usually the hardest part for them. And it culminates at the end of the year. We actually block 2 weeks at the very end of the year. We stop all classes and we let them sort of finish and really do a deep dive in that essential question. Hopefully this year we'll be able to do it. But as I said, this past year we didn't do it. And in the past, we had great examples of capstones. I remember the year before last year, we had what we called here the Gilets jaunes protest. And I remember one kid doing his internship, so the experiential part at the West of France, which is the largest newspaper in our region. He interned there, and he followed photojournalists and worked with them for 3 days and took his own pictures and then explained the process during his presentation. I mean, it was a real life experience more than just a paper they're writing at the end of the year. So, that's sort of what we do, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to do the lightning round because I'd love to. The other 3 folks on this, what a favorite capstone projects that you've seen?
Oh, I have one more, Tom, maybe. Oh, sorry, Megan, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was waiting to see maybe I want to jump in. Oh gosh, there's so many. One that I loved that was my first year here was a student who wanted to learn more about what it was like to be a person who was deaf in Zaragoza. And so she became really involved with the local organization that supports deaf people. She took Spanish Sign Language. She volunteered at that center, and she gave a big presentation to them about what life is like in the US. And there was someone interpreting, of course, with sign language while she gave that presentation. And then she also did some interviews with people there and had an interpreter with her. But she also signed. She'd learned enough that she could do introductions and sign with people with, you know, at the beginning of these interviews that she had recorded. And, you know, then of course, later on, when they got into a little bit more of deeper topics, she had a person translating for her. But I just remember she said that she wanted to learn about something that she had no prior knowledge of. You know, she really wanted to kind of discover a community that she had no experience with, and that one of her big takeaways was that it's okay for there to be silence. You know, that we're always kind of trying to fill silence, and to see how much communication can happen even when you're not, you know, surrounded by noise. It was a really, really great project.
Wow, that's remarkable. Lynée or Tomás?
I think that there have been several very good capstone projects about political issues in Spain. I remember 2 years ago, a student who can share 1 or 2 weeks working with the president of one of the most important political parties here in Zaragoza. And I think that that experience was amazing for them.
I would just add, I haven't seen any of the capstone projects yet because of, you know, what had happened last year when the students had to leave. But
Right.
I can remark on, while the students were away during SYA Online, we had a project in English called Exhausting a Place in Rennes, where they had to choose a place and really kind of go back in their mind and really exhaust it by giving it some description. And one of the students took all of her notes from her notebook for her capstone, and she recreated what she would have done for her capstone through this project. It was in English, so but she threw in a lot of French into it as well. She had photos from the market, so her capstone topics was surrounded by the markets in Rennes, and she had met with some chefs and much more detail that I didn't know about. But she really said, I can't leave this project unfinished, so I'm going to take this assignment and I'm going to use it in a different way. And it just showed passion and creativity and resiliency. And it was amazing just to see it on the receiving end of it.
Wow. And Mina, you had another example for us.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to take too much time. I have many, but I'll just share this one. This boy, his name was James, and James was very curious about languages, all languages. And very early on in September, he arrived and he was walking around, and one day he asked me, he's like, all the street names are in French, but there's another language in the bottom. They're translated in some other language that I can't recognize. And he had just been here for a few days. So I said, it's normal. It's the Breton language, which is our local language. So nobody speaks it in Rennes. There, you know, in some remote villages and in the depth of Bretagne, that language is still used. And so he was very curious about that. And I told him, like, keep that in mind for your capstone. And then he actually used that as an essential question for his capstone. And he learned some Breton. His experiential part was to go and take Breton classes, which he taught to his peers here at school. And for the hands-on portion of it, his active participation was to actually rename the entire place here. So every office classroom here has a label in Breton. So he left his mark. It's been 2 years. I left all of it as it is. So one day when he comes back, he can, you know, he can see it.
Oh, that's terrific. I wonder if he's studying languages in college. Have you kept up with him?
He's not. He's at Brown right now. He's not studying language. No.
Ah, okay. And just want to, this is the embarrassing moment, which is, Meghan, you work closely with Tomás, and we all know he's so dedicated to his students and they love him. Heap on some nice words about Tomás and how he's, what kind of work he does for us.
Of course, that's very easy. I mean, I don't know how much time you all have, but I mean, you know, in general, I know across all of our campuses, we are very fortunate that the teachers are incredibly dedicated and that they love what they do. I think, you know, reading through student surveys, there's always comments about how much a difference it makes. Not that there aren't teachers, obviously, that love what they do at all schools, but I think to have a concentrated group of teachers who all love what they do, it has a massive effect on the atmosphere of the school. And Tomás is definitely one of those people. So I know all of us on this call have benefited from Tomás's infinite kindness and patience and generosity with his time and his knowledge. And that's something that benefits all of us, of course, as adults that are fortunate enough to work with him, but also our students. They, you know, always have questions about things, not only related to his class, but also related to technology. The printer's not working, I can't find a charger. I mean, you know, there's all those little things that both the teachers and myself and the students are bugging him about all of the time, but he never, I mean, the answer is always yes. You know, he's always there to help us and to support us with the technology side, in addition to all the work that he does as a fantastic teacher. So, gracias, Tomás.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias por tus palabras.
We're very fortunate to have you on our team.
And I know from firsthand experience, you can hold my hand in technology and really help me. So gracias as well. And Mina, how about Lynée?
You're on mute, Mina.
Mute.
I'm having issues with my button, sorry. Here we go. So yeah, like in any school, the faculty plays a central role in shaping the students' experience. So I'm lucky to have a united and committed team in place here to carry the overall SYA goals. And if I had to pick just one success story along these lines, what comes to mind is what we've mentioned before, is how every single faculty member came together and worked very closely this past year on our biggest curriculum innovation, which is Fieldwork Thursday here in France. So they came together as a team and showed the ability to adapt and involve in creating place-based education and interdisciplinary content for students to become active participants in their learning process. And this whole background brings me to our wonderful English teacher, Lynée, whose class does not actually have that fieldwork course designation, but Lynée volunteered to participate in this collective project from day one, and it was new for everyone, and it was very hard, and we were in endless prep meetings, and that in the target language, like Aaron was saying in the beginning, you know, our American faculty come in and it's kind of a fire hose, like we just throw, you know, everything at them very quickly, and all of that very often time happens in French. Just one tangible example of her participation in fieldwork was when Lynée created, she made many, but I'm just going to use one for time's sake here, a fieldwork for students during our Paris trip that was called I Was Here, I Saw This, and It Mattered to Me. One of the places that students visited to complete this assignment, which was a video narration, was the original Shakespeare and Company shop featured in Ernest Hemingway's memoir, Movable Feast. And other than seeing the students really enjoying this fieldwork, it's been very pleasing to see Lynée's sheer will to be a team player in this big project this year. And it's always a huge win for our kids when we actually can make connections for them, help them make connections to the in-country experience, and that, you know, that even more so when it happens in English class. So addition to that, she has many qualities, but I can also mention, you know, that Lynée was one of the faculty members that accompanied the students to Charles de Gaulle on March 13th, when announced to the group that we were unfortunately closing our program. And I know that her presence, her kindness, her overall calmness really helped students during this difficult time. So Lynée, I thank you for your work that you've done on a day-to-day basis with the kids. And I know, given the evaluation, but even aside from the evaluations, from what I heard from kids when they were here and now that they're gone, that they really, really appreciate you as a person and as their teacher and the advisor. So thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Mina.
And before I turn it over to Aaron, I really want to thank the two resident directors. And people ask me, what does a resident director do? And I said, well, it's, kind of the person who's the head of the school. And then I think, well, they're also the dean of faculty, they're the dean of students, they're the repair person, they wear many, many hats. And Meghan and Mina do it in such a committed, loving way. And, just whenever we kind of say, could you do, and they say, what do you need? And they do it with passion, and they care deeply about the students, as you can tell, about their faculty members and the whole SYA mission. So I thank the two RDs on this call. So thank you guys a lot for everything. I'm going to turn it over to Aaron and see if there are any questions or you want to make other comments, Aaron.
Thanks, Tom. And thank you so much to Meghan and Mina and to Tomás and Lynée. As I was listening, I was like, you know what? I'm going to find a way to spend a semester in Spain and a semester in France. I've had a short little, been able to see the school in each place. And I was lucky to be at France's 50th a few years ago, but just wasn't long enough. And I'd really like to, as I'm sure everybody listening would like to spend more time with all of you. It's been really inspiring to listen to you talk about your work and the impact that you've had on our students. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us and for taking some time with us today. I have been just monitoring the Q&A, and there's not been anything that's come in there, and we're actually coming up on our time. We were trying to keep this to about 45 minutes. So I'll just make a few closing comments, and in the meantime, I'll just keep a quick eye on the Q&A if there are any lingering thoughts that come in. But as we close, as we usually do, I just want to ask for everyone's help in a number of ways. The first is that we always ask our community to help spread the word about SYA. That is actually the most important thing that you can do, and we ask you to do that this year, every year, but especially this year. Our admissions team is, as you can imagine, trying a whole new method for recruiting, which is entirely virtual. Usually they're able to get into schools and in front of potential students and make those connections in person. So they're trying something different, and I think they're doing a spectacular job, but really the word of mouth is what is most effective in, as you have heard, even just from our RDs and faculty, in terms of convincing others to do SYA. So if you can talk about it, promote it within your communities, we'd really appreciate that. Similarly, if you have already made a gift or a pledge to the campaign for SYA, please talk with the campaign about the campaign with your classmates, with your friends and other people who are in your SYA circle. Tom and I spent a lot of time on the road last year getting to know people and having conversations promoting the campaign at our events. We are not doing that in the same way this year while we're still having virtual meetings. So any positive word you can share about the campaign and why it's important to give to it, we would appreciate that. If you haven't yet made a campaign gift or pledge, please just be open to having a conversation in the coming months as we continue scheduling our virtual meetings and talk with folks like you who care deeply for SYA and want to strengthen it for the future. And then lastly, please keep reading our emails and attending our events. We think they're pretty great. I mean, you get to see all these wonderful faces and hear their stories. In addition to this campaign webinar series that we're completing today, back in September, we hosted a panel with 4 of the first female students, which was really quite intriguing to listen to. And I encourage you to check out the recording on that one, as well as a panel with our friends Mina and Meghan here, along with their colleague in Italy, Pat Scanlon, who talked more about what's happening in each of their countries and how the SYA experience continues to evolve and change. So stay tuned for more virtual events in the coming months. We'll look forward to seeing you more then. And I thank you all again for attending today and for your deep commitment to SYA's mission. And one last thanks to Tomás, Lynée, Meghan, and Mina for joining us. And with that, we'll conclude today's webinar.